Rick Grenell, Senior Advisor to the ACLJ, joins us now, and I'm glad he was able to do it today because, Rick, this, to me, is a signal from the true Iranian leaders, the supreme leader and his advisors to the U.S. and the world that we believe we can put our most extreme supporters and thugs in place as our president, and still you'll want to deal with us. Still, you'll beg us to join this nuclear deal.
Yeah, let's think about that. This is a killer. This guy is an unbelievable mass murderer. He has sanctions on him, and yet the Biden administration is going to be negotiating with him.
To me, I mean, Andy, when I hear about this, someone who's got a record of turning on his own people this way, you mentioned a Nazi judge who was known as Hitler's judge.
Yeah. Roland Freisler, you may have heard of him, Ambassador. He was Hitler's judge. He was the head of the judiciary, and when you went before him, you were verbally abused, you were physically abused, you were convicted, you were dead on arrival, and he worked his way up through the judiciary. So what do you think is the message that the Iranian supreme leader who supported this guy, Raisi, who's handpicked him, of course, obviously. He wouldn't have been president if the Ayatollah hadn't chosen him. What is he telling Biden? What is he saying to Biden?
Well, unfortunately, I think he's saying to Biden exactly what everybody else is saying. The Chinese leader, the Russian leader, they're all saying to Biden that we need to test you. We are going to try and figure out how much we can get away with, how far we can push it. At this point, the Iranian regime seems to be in control of the negotiations. The Europeans want the Americans at the table. The Americans are rushing to the table. They're rewarding the Europeans and the Iranians with the process, but we're not even talking yet about the substance. And I fear that the substance, there's nothing that we can agree on to move forward if you're trying to deny Iran a nuclear weapon.
You know, one thing, Rick, that I thought was unique is that we know from this team, we know from Jake Sullivan specifically, in his role, that back under the under the Obama administration, there was that cover-up move by the State Department, and we filed the FOIA to get that uncovered, about where they clipped out part of a press conference about when they actually began negotiations with Iran, because they didn't want people to know at the time that they actually started those negotiations with Ahmadinejad, with the more radical president of Iran. And they didn't wait until Rouhani was there. Now, I mean, unless they try to play some game, which we've talked about, like maybe they can get into the deal before he's technically the president. But ultimately, whether they do that or not between now and August, this is their guy who is a direct pick by the Ayatollah, yes, but not someone who's there to soften Iran's image at all.
No, there's no reform idea here. I mean, and let's think about it. We are negotiating with somebody who is under sanctions restrictions from the United States. This is a real problem. And I think that what you're going to find is the Biden administration is going to be in a corner very soon. They're going to realize that the Iranians are not coming forward with any new ideas. They're not coming forward to somehow show that they've been honest. And the only deal that's going to be offered is a deal where they continue to work towards programs that will develop a nuclear weapon. And we've got to pray, we've got to hope, and we've got to keep the pressure on the Biden administration that they reject the offer that's coming towards them.
Wes?
You know, Rick, one of the things that I find astonishing and troubling is how many of our supposed allies are pushing us to lift the sanctions and re-enter the agreement. But one of them over the last few days that's been in the news a lot is that Germany in particular, and you're the former ambassador to Germany, that Germany in particular is really, they have the full court press on trying to get the United States lift the sanctions and re-enter the agreement. Why is Germany pushing so hard on this?
Well, first of all, they don't have the same threat assessment that we do when it comes to Iran or China or any other country. They have a Germany first economic model. They have a large economy with a huge surplus, and they maximize making sure that they get trade. They want to trade with Iran. They want to open up their economy. it's not too much to say that they would rather have trade than take a firm stance on human rights. That's the reality of today's Germany.
So, final question, Rick, just for you on this. I mean, with this move by Iran, it's not like anyone is winning since the revolution there in '79 that isn't kind of handpicked. But certainly they knew what this would do, that a pick like this would do to our allies in the Gulf, to Israel, and the United States. I mean, it also gives a lot of ammo to those opposed to the nuclear deal. Now, Biden team wants to go full forward with this, but this is a new criticism point of what are you thinking of dealing with this regime.
But it goes to, Jordan, it goes to the fact we've talked about this before, is that the Biden administration is determined to have consensus with the Europeans, which means the Europeans get to decide what our policy is together. We, the United States, are somehow believing that we are going to be safer if we're with the Europeans and we have a watered down policy. And I just think that it's dangerous to think about having the Europeans and the Americans have the identical policy, because I go back to the threat assessment. The threat assessment for Europe and the United States is not the same. We are under different threats. And so if you're going to join the Western Alliance, if you're going to be with us, you've got to understand that the Western Alliance, the Transatlantic Alliance, has the Americans as a pillar, and the Americans are under a bigger threat.